Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics on Saturday, January 29th, 2022. Yes, amazingly enough, this is the 1-year anniversary of Silver Squeeze, the Silver Squeeze. Well, the thing is, none of those issues were ever resolved. And amazingly, they are actually flaring up on the anniversary. So to dig into what led to these conditions that you're going to see plenty more about going forward, we are continuing a look back at Silver Squeeze, biggest moment in the history of finance. The Arcadia Silver Network.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. Welcome on into the live show. Thanks for joining me tonight on this Tuesday, January 19th. We're going to be doing some more live content, general going forward. So type your comments. Let me know if you like the live ones more than the pre-recorded ones. I know there's always a lot of questions, and I think people like interacting with each other. So anyway, you can type your comments in the field there, in the chat field. And welcome on in, because we are going to talk some silver. We're talking about a lot of things that are going on here today. And obviously we have Inauguration Day coming up tomorrow. A lot of troops in Washington is what I hear. I'm not in Washington. So in today's news cycle, what is fact? Interesting question to think about. But anyway, we'll cover that. We'll dig into some option trading, some big silver short. Geez, let's see what I have in my pocket today. I carry around some silver coins regularly now. Maybe I'll have to switch up the rotation, but I say we give away something tonight. So how about this one here? Oh no, we could find a more exciting one than that. Actually, I'll tell you what, tonight, they say when you're to jog the subconscious, give it so you can like really feel it. So rather than the generic one, I'm going to give away to one lucky winner this really super cool, it's like a pirate coin, if you can see that there, guarding his treasure chest, which is pretty slick. And then on the back, you see that this thing is heavier than 1 ounce. So no prey, no pay, I think is what it says there. Anyway, so someone who does something silvery in the chat room or impresses our moderator, Yara, who is out there, well, we'll get one of these babies out to you. In fact, this exact one, and Yara, if you could order me another one, I'd like these. I'd like to have one for myself. So with that said, let us kickstart into the action here. Tonight's show is sponsored by The Big Silver Short. Great book. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased here, but how the Wall Street banks left the silver market in place for the short squeeze of a lifetime, which, again, not legal licensed financial advice, but what's interesting about the book, when I started digging into silver in 2009, I think it was around 2011, I think it was around September, after gold had gotten popped from $1,900 in the middle of the night, right as the Swiss pegged their franc to the euro, which I'm sure made a lot of people want to sell gold just like you see now. But so let's say 10 years of researching into silver manipulation, I kept thinking, maybe I'm imagining something, maybe I'm missing it. Although, the book really came about, I say, as an effort to find what I could be missing. That was one of the reasons why I did it in an interview style format, to get all these other folks that I was listening to and considered experts. So anyway, 10 years later, I guess I'm more convinced than ever. I keep trying to find an alternate explanation, but fortunately, we got actually pretty lucky. Obviously, took about almost a year plus. We started in April or January of 2019. Fortunately, got it out on June 18th, which was when silver was still $18. Then, as we can pull up here on our silver chart, we got a nice little late night spike during the show. Silver up. And I think this is interesting. I mean, I don't know what to make of this, but there are these times where you see it's like a mirror image, maybe different dimensions on the curve, but quite similar these last 3 days. And, you know, we'll see how it shakes out by the time we're done. We started a little earlier tonight, I might add, because there is a roundtable with Bix, Cliff, a few other folks starting in a little bit. We're also looking at different start times, show options, whether we do more live. So by all means, type in the comments if you have any preferences there. We want to get things queued up. Might do it earlier, closer to after the market closes, maybe while the market is open. But we're a team here with my Arcadian family. So anyway, let's see. Back to our silver chart. You can see been floating around 25. And where's the 1 year? Yes, you can see here. This is, fortunately, I was really worried right around January in particular. People who are around me day to day might have often seen me a little cranky because I was thinking, Jesus, I hope this thing doesn't blow up before we get the book out. Fortunately, the spirits were with us. So there's June 28, really right before that spiked up, which by all means, I'm not claiming is any brilliance on my part. But what I would take away from there is that when silver sits below $20 for 4 years, and then when it finally moves, so I mean, here's the 10-year chart. You know, you see up at 50, and then ever since 2015, and here's the spike in 2016, gets right up to 20. So pretty tight range, then gets driven down. There's an example of the law of unintended consequences of what happens when you suppress a market. It was glorious to see it happen that quickly and shot right back up. Yes, COVID was happening. There were other things happening. But keep in mind, there were even a couple months after those things that were directly impactful to the silver market happened before that shot up there. I would say that is the effect of the leverage. Normally, asset markets don't work like that. So I still think that's just the tip of the iceberg of what we're about to see. So if you want to know how I think it's going to unfold, or how at least, who all did we have in the book? There was David Morgan, Dave Kranzler, Andrew McGuire, Ted Butler, Bart Chilton, who confirmed all of the, what has long been alleged, Craig Hemke, Ned Naylor Leyland. Great chapter by Ned, and hopefully we'll get him back on the show soon. And anyway, I stand by my research. In fact, I feel more proud of it than ever, just in the sense of, do I feel that is worth passing along to folks now? So anyway, that'll be the sponsor of tonight's show. And go ahead and type in questions, because I know I said Q&A last time. We didn't get to quite as many questions, but anyone got a good home run play, says Nicholas? Yes, and I would call it silver. That is my home run play. But let us continue on here. I will keep an eye out for the questions. We'll take a quick look at gold. Pretty flat, which is interesting. I mean, you have, where is that link? Okay, so thousands of National Guard troops pour into Washington as states answer the call. I am not going to claim to know what will or will not happen tomorrow. Certainly my thoughts are, I hope that it is, people can express themselves peacefully more than anything, whatever you feel. But still, just to the degree that when there's a gun in the room, there's a higher probability that a gun goes off. There is volatility, which fortunately ties in. We're going to talk volatility and options because we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But if you can, let me see how to put this appropriately. If you can price things more accurately, price probabilities more accurately than the other guy, then you get to become the casino, which we talked about in our silver chat the other night. Come back here. Will ingesting silver give me hair like yours, says Quackbow. Possibly if it's colloidal silver, I think that could do some good things. I don't know if you're planning on taking down a physical silver bar, that would be less recommended. Mr. Tim A says the law of supply and demand apply to physical metals as much as any other good or service on the planet. COMEX contracts ratio 250-1. How soon will we see the final disconnect from SLV and physical? Tim, I wish I knew. The way I look at it is that it could be tomorrow. I mean, let's be clear of our phrasing here. Well, I don't know that it will be tomorrow, and most likely it will not be tomorrow. Yet, if you think of it slightly differently in terms of if you do think that a break point is inevitable, and you say, well, what kind of day might something like that occur on? I mean, tomorrow's the kind of day. I don't know what Trump will do, but I mean, at least to me, it's plausible that he would drop a truth bomb. I mean, I'm not taking sides here, but I think one thing, whether people who love or hate Donald Trump can agree on, is that backing down is not really his go-to move. And you saw, for example, what happened with the whole thing with China, where it just keeps escalating, digging deeper and deeper in. So, he sat there, gotten, at least on the surface of what we see, attacked by Pelosi, Democrats, even gets attacked by the Republicans. And I do believe, I mean, we don't have to go into conspiracy zone or my personal thoughts or beliefs. I mean, you can go look on YouTube. You can do 5 minutes of research or read a couple of books. It's not hard to find documentation of things that are not within the legal code. Like I phrased that to avoid any hot button triggers or algorithms that are kicking in there, like on Wall Street. So to me, it's like he can at least make a big stir on the way out. I mean, for example, when he delayed the release of the JFK files a couple of years ago. Now, ironically enough, in my book, The Bush Crime Family, which is sensational so far, by the way, I might add, we just covered how George H.W. Bush still claimed that he did not know where he was that day, which seems a little unusual. Would there be something like that coming out? I mean, Trump clearly knows. I mean, it's not hard to find things about some of these politicians that most people in the public don't know for the people that they're voting for. So anyway, obviously we will not get into some of the darker things that have certainly emerged that I at least do believe have been occurring on probably a much wider scale than is comprehensible. So again, I can't tell you the future exactly what will happen, but in terms of how we would price this from a volatility perspective, I mean, it's kind of the same as like on an earnings day. Sometimes the earnings number comes right on the number and, it's not a big deal and it doesn't move. But on average, when you have certain events such as the labor report is a big one where gold and silver would often get hammered, Fed meetings, and certainly I would put tomorrow in it. Would seem to be a higher than normal volatility day. And I'm going to look back in here for some more questions. Hey, Chris, interested in silver? Total newbie here. Any comment on the Quest trade RRSP for holding silver and gold? Stu, can you? Not quite sure what you mean there. Perhaps if you could explain that again, I will do my best to answer it. Any way to short Trump properties? I'm sure there are. I don't know exactly what that would be. I mean, there's probably some company that is directly linked that's publicly traded. Speaking of shorting real estate or stock market bubbles for that matter, I mean, on one hand, yes, I think that you can make some clear arguments these are in bubble territory as well. Although what I wonder is that, I think stocks like Tesla are overvalued due to money printing. But given that it's hard for me to see, even if the stock market goes down 2%, to see the red scarf request. Well, we will not do that, but it's hard to see anything happening where the response is not quickly more money printing. So I think anytime the bubble tries to pop, it will get inflated back up. Let's see what they're actually, well, we'll take a quick look at what is being discussed on CNBC tonight. I'm sure there's something about more stimulus. Stock futures flat and overnight trading ahead of Biden's inauguration. Trump doesn't mention Biden in. Oh, here we go. Biden looks to give a big boost to home buyers and builders. There you go. Perfect. So again, I know you asked about Trump real estate, but here's real estate in general is proposing 15,000. So I mean, they're pumping money in, and when you read things like this, I mean, by all means, enjoy anything that you want to dig into and understand, but don't let the details bog you down. I know I used to have a habit of that, but whether it's 15,000 for first-time home buyers or 10,000 for second-time home buyers, the net effect is that money in net is being printed and pumped in to prop up the market. I don't think we will ever see in this current system. In fact, I'll go as far as to guarantee you that we won't see it. They will never let the real estate thing collapse. I mean, I don't know. Does it say somewhere? There's some stat. I think the housing market is like a third of the economy at this point. So, I mean, I think when people say, well, they don't have a choice. Well, you have a choice. You stop lying directly to people's faces and, say, hey, we're insolvent. We have to restructure. We have to acknowledge this. But instead, they just keep compounding and doubling down. So let's see. Michael says, Chris, I like to store my silver and gold in PSLV and OUNZ because they're allocated metal and you can take delivery. It's all in a Roth IRA. I'm not familiar with the second one you mentioned there, but yeah, I'd feel comfortable with the Sprott Trust. That's PSLV. They also have a gold trust. I mean, if you really don't want to take physical delivery, which, I get it. There's situations where, you want to have storage, but instead of SLV, go to the Sprott Trust. I mean, what are you supposed to say? SLV, JP Morgan's the custodian, GLD, HSBC is the custodian. I mean, they're both banks that have a track record of felonies and screwing their customers. So I very much hope that no matter what happens, the people who own SLV and GLD are going to get reimbursed or that the metal is there. So, I mean, by all means, not rooting for a failure there, but does it seem like a significant risk factor? Sure does to me. So anyway, there you go on the mortgages. Let's take a quick look at the dollar index leading into tomorrow's festivities. We see it's right around 90.39, come down quite a bit after last half year or so, really since October, September-ish there. And I guess I would imagine that would be what the folks in the technical industry call a resistance level. And despite Janet Yellen saying that she doesn't support the weak dollar policy, but just kept interest rates at zero while she was in office. So make of that what you will, but let us take a look at the volatility index going into tomorrow's events. Let's switch the quote there. That's the VIX, which you don't hear as much about, but in option trading land, we're quite familiar with. So higher than average, still not a massive level. Now, if I recall the math correctly, it's not exactly linear the way it's calculated, but you see here was what happened. We got up to 66 back in March around Corona. Going back a little further, there you see, I believe I remember I've seen prints of 80 back in 2008, shortly after Lehman Brothers. So obviously, while the bubble was being inflated, you saw it sit there in the teens for quite a while before spiking back up. But anyway, another thing to keep an eye on as we go forward. And with that said, I'm going to come back and take a look for some more questions here. Okay, there is Chris. Do you prefer American Eagles or bars? I don't really have a ton of either. I don't go nuts over the American Eagles. I mean, I generally was thinking if my core view is that we're more than the mining stocks. I mean, what I believe in my heart at the end of the day is that the price of silver has to go up. So I generally opted for most silver per dollar. Now, with that said, you could say if we really have a wacky situation and there's a silver shortage, would the premiums on the minted coins from the American Mint, the Eagles, and the Maple Leafs from the Canadian Mint, would they spike as well? So, yeah, I mean, I guess anything is possible, and perhaps it's like, if you get just have the silver, and it's like we're like splitting the rounding error most likely. I mean, you could make a case for either. So I don't think there's one set answer that is going to pay off more, but of course, you can get a mix, I guess, is the last thing that I would add on that. Chris, will you flee the U.S. as tax ramps up? Well, I don't know. I'll tell you what, I did leave the U.S. once before when I was first learning about how this stuff all goes and how I thought it would ultimately have to unfold. I did find that the same banks that own the U.S. own Europe too. Excuse me. Which actually is interesting when you think about it. Now, I like to assume hopefully there was a guy named George Washington and Paul Revere and all of that. I wasn't there, and turns out my Rothschild's grade school textbooks were not always giving me the most accurate version of things. Yet the idea that, I mean, even the governments seem to be beholden to the hidden upper layers of the banks, and just makes me wonder, like, how independent are we really? We keep hearing about how these British banking families are still controlling everything. So fine, tell them America's free, but in the end, you still own it through the banking system. That was the conclusion I came to. And certainly in the last 8-9 years it took me to get a business up and cranking, which was one of the harder things for me anyway in my life. And then the idea that, gee, now you write out a big check. It's like I understand very much why people who have started a business have a different perspective than those who haven't. I've seen both sides of it, and both are equally important. I find an appreciation and understanding for each other goes a long way. But I just say this in the sense that when I think about what I went through and what I know other people who started businesses who've gone through on a level that I hope to one day maybe experience, I do wonder if Biden's the president and implements the kind of things. I mean, now keep in mind, we never know what anybody's going to implement based on what they say when they campaign, because usually that's not actually what's happening, but at least what you would imagine. I wonder if we will see some capital flight out of here. So anyway, I am not sure what I'm going to do. I have a lease here in Austin I got it for half a year. Was hoping to do Silverfest 2 up in Vancouver. Although I hear some sketchy stories about their virus police and like creating like ratting each other out culture, which, so I don't know where the next stop will be. I'm just learning to be grateful that this was part of my plan when I was leaving the trading floor, to be able to go wherever I want, continue to learn, continue to share things that I think are important for people. So certainly I really appreciate all of you who tune in each night and make this possible. And with that said, let's see if we have a couple more questions here. Love to get some analysis on miners, royalty streams, exploratory. Yes, well, we will actually dig into something I found darn interesting. Let me come back over here. We'll go to the come back. Silver stock portfolio. I've looked at this before. I'm sure actually, maybe I didn't mention it before, but you probably know there's the GDX, the gold miner index, the GDXJ, which is for the junior miners. Then for silver, we have SIL and SILJ. And I would say that at least, and I'm guessing I'm not alone here, but when you think of prime junior silver miners ETF, the SILJ, that I would look at that and think, oh, this is would. I looked at that. I'm like, well, this is cool. You know, the index of junior miners, where certainly, you know, we've heard the stories from the old timers about, yeah, the 10 bagger and the 30 baggers and 50 baggers. I think that's going to be possible. I mean, Silvercrest, I think, is Kranzler got that at 16 cents. It's $9 now. So, many baggers, and certainly if you have silver go to 50, if you have silver go beyond 50, and some of these companies find what they're looking for, then I think that's very possible. And I've been thinking about it where, say you took $10,000, right? You bought 10 silver junior miners. If you hit on one that becomes a 30 bagger, even if the other 9 find nothing, then you still 3x'd your portfolio, because the 1,000 becomes 30,000, the rest becomes 0. So you turn 10 into 30. So, and again, not legal financial advice, but just something I've been thinking about, which is like, all right, well, then maybe you have this thing which provides that for you. Although you look at the holdings, I couldn't believe this when I first saw it. Where do we go? So here you have Pan American, which I sent this to one of my friends who is part of a royalty streamer. That's you, Uncle Scotty from EMX. That's right. EMX, great. That's, again, not legal financial advice, but a stock that I really like. And he pointed out here, the market cap, $8 billion. And if you dig a little further, Pan American, he actually was kind enough to look up the stats, 31% revenue by silver. So I don't even know if I'd call that a silver company, despite the name, and certainly not a junior. Hecla, I don't know that I would consider them a junior. First Majestic Silver, I love First Majestic Silver, although of all the things that I love about First Majestic Silver, they're not a junior miner. Here's Yamana Gold, MAG, Silvercrest. I mean, I was just stunned. I mean, this, again, I'm not saying, I mean, I'd be happy to own this thing. I love most of the companies in there, and I think that they will do incredibly well. But silver junior miner index, I would say no. And fortunately, as I think you've probably learned if you're a longtime viewer of the show, my goal, generally speaking, is to be as lazy as possible. And I was thinking, wow, well, just putting together an index that actually, what is AXU? That's a Lexco, good stock that worth looking into and doing some due diligence. Discovery Metals, I hear many good things about. But just like the premise of creating something that actually replicates what I think SILJ is advertising, because I don't think they quite, I mean, that doesn't seem like a silver junior miner index to me. And so I'm actually putting something together, and I was thinking, gee, that could be fun, you know, get like a good index. It'd probably be a nice little project to work on, and at Wall Street fee schedule. So yeah, there we go. Anyway, so I thought that was interesting. Speaking of First Majestic Silver, though, quick note to pass along here from my good friend Mark Carruthers. Hopefully you guys had the chance to meet Mark at Silverfest in the First Majestic booth. Mark is one of my favorites in the silver industry, and keeps me posted. Just a good dude in general. Well, who I will very much be hoping to see if I do make it to Vancouver. And he passed along that tomorrow, First Majestic will be holding a conference call at 11 a.m. Eastern time. call will be focused on Q4 and full year production and the 2021 outlook. Let's see. To participate in this call, free from Canada and the US, is 800-319-4610. Maybe someone can type that in the chat window. 800-319-4610. And you can also click on the webcast on the First Majestic homepage at firstmajestic.com. Again, that will be 11 a.m. Eastern. So, and you can let your, okay, we do have the link. See, look at that. Mark Carruthers. That guy's so awesome. There he is, even putting up with my emails at whatever time it is in Vancouver right now. So I'm going to put the link in there. Yara, maybe you can go into the description field, add that in, the link for First Majestic, who is one of the sponsors that brings you this show each night. So they bring you the show and they go get the silver. I mean, it's a good portfolio of great deeds in the world they're doing, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but thank you, First Majestic. Also, thank you for hiring Mark. I'm darn grateful I got to meet him. Todd Anthony, also great there, and Jill, and of course, Keith Newmeyer. That I'll tell a quick Keith Newmeyer story here that I guess now that we've been doing this for a while, I can get into things like this. But I still remember the first time I met Keith. It was at the Sprott show in 2018. So the channel was already up and running, but nobody really knew who I was or was watching back then. So, and I was still kind of like naturally a little bit of a shy introvert, and went to the First Majestic lunch, and it's like a little fanboy. I'm like, Keith, oh yeah. And I remember he was kind of looking at me. I was like, I couldn't tell if he was like, what does this guy want or what? And I was just, even at that time, though, already had great admiration for how he had stood. I mean, so I've learned more and more about the company. I've always been impressed with the things that I've seen them do. But even years before that, obviously, you know how I feel about the manipulation of the silver market. And that bothers me just when you see people cheating. It's just something I don't personally like being around. And so that Keith stood up in his position and spoke up about that. I will just say that's why he was the single mining executive in the big silver short book. So anyway, thank you, Keith. Thank you, First Majestic. And yeah, that link is in the field below or in the chat window, and hopefully will be in the screen below shortly if Yara, you're able to get that in there. I'm going to take another look back in, see if we have any questions here. Jenna Moorhart says Keith is a rebel. Yes, Keith is he's like it's like a Brad Pitt in Fight Club, silver badass that is like a role model for me. So Tony Elbows, are we expecting the market to crash tomorrow? Again, in perspective of a volatility trader, there's a higher than elevated probability, I would think. So if the market does crash, I'll tell you what, you will see the Fed acting pretty quickly, would be my, as Peter Spina of Gold and Silver Seek would say, that'd be my 2 cents. All right, Jeff Clark had a great interview. I see in the comments here. Got to get Jeff back on the show. Did talk with Jeff recently. So yeah, Jeff is great and he's doing well. Then who is Chris Duane in Fight Club? Well, you guys can name your own characters. Can also start, maybe we could start a little discussion going about some roles for the Big Silver Short movie. If you'd like to have a part in there, if you have thoughts about how to film the movie, if we have any producers out there too, that's on my list of exciting things that we'll be getting to. Chris, yours and your subscribers' patience has been of heroic proportions. We'll all look back and relish the ride. Well, yeah, I think it's interesting how, I don't know, to kind of find the whole silver thing, I find requires a little soul searching and patience. And at least for me in my life, there was something about the whole Austrian economics and getting away from this matrix. I don't want Christian Bale. I want Brad Pitt, Tom. Come on. I was thinking Brad Pitt. I can work on my abs a little bit, but I'm hoping Brad Pitt could play me. Let's get the haircut down. Nice shortcut. But yeah, I remember like the whole Austrian economics. It was something about it that to me in my own life journey, it was a part of maturing where, you go out and learning to market, learning to trade, to put your value into a way that's useful to someone in the world and trade on a free voluntary basis rather than the government model where everything is just done by force. So anyway, Chris, are you going to Rob's event next week? I'm very much looking forward to it, Michael. That's the great Rob Kientz of goldsilverpros.com is having a conference online. I don't know the exact details, but I'm hoping I'm invited and I would love to be there. So anyway, unintended consequences from stimulus could crush stocks, says Jim Paulson. All right. Well, I would certainly see that possible. A few more here as I take a sip. Do have the option board pulled up. We'll take a quick look at First Majestic. I was option shopping in there today. I actually bought a range of maturities, a few 2-year options, some 1 year, some 1 week stuff expiring at the end of this week, some Februarys, some Marches. I'll just pass this along. I don't even see how to phrase this properly. There's some things that I think or feel that I don't necessarily say on the show, not because I'm not trying to be transparent, but I also realize we're talking about investments and rightly or not feel a responsibility not to phrase things in a way that, gets people in trouble or getting them overexcited, because I understand a lot of people out there interpret things in different ways. For example, I talk a lot about $50 silver, but I mean, when I think about how this stuff is all lined up, I mean, with all the debt, all the leverage, all the paper silver out there, the whole COMEX Ponzi scheme. Yeah, I think probably now, if you told me it takes 10 years or something along like that for that to really fully unravel, I could see that happening. But my guess is that by the time it's all said and done, we see some numbers that are genuinely mind-boggling. So anyway, and along those lines, I'm not saying just because whatever everybody else is thinking to go out and write that down as gospel, but I think I mentioned this on the live call the other night where just when I see people who have, always been on the conservative side and then see a lot of them changing their view, their opinion, their calls, or their perspective all at the same time, I don't know. I wonder if we will see. This is not by any means financial advice. I've never, if I ever have a strong opinion on the price, certainly I'll share it. But I don't know, to the degree that at least I was willing to buy some options of a shorter term and accepting the risk. And, but I guess just what makes it worthwhile is that, even in that call we did, yeah, I try and keep things conservative, but gee, what if, Trump does say, again, he doesn't have to release any conspiracy stuff, but if he just told Americans what happened with MK Ultra, or explain the artwork that you find in some of these elite families where it shows things that I think are mind-boggling. And, so, I mean, if something like that happened, or if the COMEX, whatever day if let's say it is, Friday and we wake up Monday and the thing has failed to deliver, if you ever get like the $75 or $100 silver price and First Majestic is like $200 or $300, I'm not saying that's how it's going to play out, but when I really look at the fundamentals of what is conceivable given the underlying dynamics where you see Tesla just went up 19x in the last year and a half just on money printing alone. So again, this is not saying that that is going to happen, but is it possible? And in that scenario, what I'm getting at is that the upside, if you ever do hit that, I mean, the return is just so stunning that essentially what I do is back out as eloquently as possible how to leave that coverage on consistently. So I'm not necessarily timing it. And then if I am ultimately right at some point, things go pretty well. So anyway, that is today's options thoughts of the day. I'm going to look back in here for some more questions. Maybe crypto taking a chunk from PM. I know that's certainly possible, and a lot of people talk about that. I don't know. I just think there's so much money being printed that I think the manipulation has hurt the investor interest and demand over the past decade. To me, that's feels like that would be a bigger factor. That's not to say that's right. Just that's my gut. So one last thing here, two last things here before we wrap up tonight. Three last things. All right, maybe. Well, actually, we could go four, but we're gonna get close to wrapping up here. In fact, we'll come back to that one another night. One note I did want to pass along: you saw Gwen Preston and Peter Kraut back about a month ago on the show, and they were doing a silver focused newsletter, just silver stocks, and it is now finally available. There you can see at the Resource Maven. I'm going to fire this in the chat window. Yara, maybe perhaps you could put that one in the comment field below as well. But yes, that newsletter is now available on the Silver Stock Investor. And certainly I think Gwen and Peter know their silver stocks. So nice to have something just for us silver investors who are like, yeah, gold, you have your thing. But anyway, you can find that at resourcemaven.ca/subscribe. So thank you, Gwen and Peter. I'm looking forward to getting my account squared up there and start logging on. Although here will be our last one for the evening tonight. I read this before. I cannot guarantee the accuracy of it, so you can take that as you will. But darn interesting, I'll tell you that. Black Eagle Trust Fund, 9/11 attacks, Black Eagle Trust Fund. Brilliant summary. And I believe there were a lot of, were there a lot of links at the bottom there? Or am I confusing that with something else? Where to find footnotes. To explore the excellent footnotes for the above article, see the full essay available here. This is a condensed version of the story. So again, as with anything, especially 9/11, I'll leave you to decide the truth. I'm not going to try and convince you or anybody of what to believe about 9/11, but we will take a look through here because it is quite intriguing. Heidner presents volumes of solid evidence to support his thesis that one of the main reasons for the attacks was to cover up the laundering of over $200 billion in bonds from a secretive fund that were to come due the day after. Below are some key excerpts. So let us go here. September 11th attacks were likely meant as a cover-up for financial crimes being investigated by the Office of Naval Intelligence. Interestingly, just happened to be in the section of the Pentagon that was blown up that day. Now, keep in mind that if you had, this was like the size of the Pentagon, the wings would have been out here you've never seen a plane part. And coincidentally, the auditor's work was destroyed. Was intended to cover up the clearing of $240 billion in securities covertly created in September of 91 to fund a covert economic war against the Soviet Union, during which unknown Western investors bought up much of the Soviet industry with a focus on oil and gas. And so basically, these were 10-year bonds that came due, at least according to this article, on September 11th, 2001. Again, my studies of history without having gone through his further documentation, this is something I've thought about for years and certainly fits within the realm of possibilities. The trust they created takes its name from the Nazi Black Eagle Trust stamped on gold bars of the Third Reich. That certainly I've seen and read about. A lot of gold moved hands during World War II. Certainly doesn't get written about a lot. And keep in mind that who would have been the president while this catastrophe was going down in 1991 was George Bush. And if anyone is doubting the Bush family's involvement with the Nazis, then I would suggest getting this, which I am reading now. I'm on the Bush crime family. Plenty of documentation and evidence in that. Also have this one, which I'll dig into soon. Also another one, yes, which will give you ample documentation, resources, verification of the Bush family and such groups like those. So anyway, interesting article. I just thought I would pass along. It's a nice light reading on the night before the inauguration, which will be going down tomorrow, and of which right at the moment, silver up a little bit, gold up slightly. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. But again, more importantly than anything, wherever you are, by all means, speak up about what you feel is right. Do it peacefully. There's enough stuff going on in the world that is a challenge as it is already. And just hope everyone is staying safe out there. Be well. Thank you. I love you all. And we will